Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed. Today we're talking about the external challenges facing Pakistan, what Pakistan's foreign policy direction should be, and we'll also talk about the latest tussle going on between the Americans and the Russians. Apparently, there's a new standoff and there are sanctions that have been applied by the US on the Russians. So we'll talk about the fallout of those sanctions. Maybe there's a new Cold War on the horizon. What's the changing world order? All these things will be discussed in our show today. Let me introduce my guest in the studio. Joining me today, we have Saeed Khalid Saab. He's a former ambassador. And along with him, we have Shoukat Paracha Saab, who is a very well-known journalist. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. Saeed Saab, I'll start with you. When we talk about the external challenges to Pakistan, the first and foremost one, obviously after India, is the Afghan conundrum that we are stuck in. The Chief of Army Staff has held a meeting with the Afghan officials, and there was a positive discussion about cooperation in border management and trying to control the so-called sanctuaries that each of the countries accuse each other of having. So do you think that we can see some positive developments taking place in the coming weeks and days to see a cooperative atmosphere being built between the two countries?
I think these talks have been going on all along between the two militaries. And we also had a powerful congressional delegation recently. And the diplomatic channel never stops really, even if it's not in the limelight. But it just so happens that today it is in the limelight with the visit of a State Department delegation.
Alice Wells.
Which had a comprehensive meeting already. So, I mean, there are contacts on all three levels, Congress, military, and diplomatic. And obviously the question is that if we have these contacts, if we have this sustained dialogue, why somehow it's not clicking? Why we always hear do more? And why we never we never hear a positive, comment from the US about Pakistan as far as Afghanistan is concerned. They do say that yes, Pakistan has worked very hard to eliminate terrorism within its own borders, but they always fall short of commending what Pakistan is doing on the border, trying to enhance border security, control movement of people, control movement of undesirable elements. And so that is where I think we need better understanding, maybe better cooperation, maybe better intel cooperation, so that this problem is brought down. The original plan was that the US troops levels will be cut. The Kabul government and the Afghan National Security Forces, they will be allowed, to hold on their own largely. That has not worked. The situation is worse than before, more violence than before. There is the added element of the Daesh.
Absolutely. In fact, the Daesh footprint is increasing in Afghanistan day by day. That is what the reports are telling us.
So you have this challenge that violence in Afghanistan is not coming down. Maybe it is going up. And I think Pakistan and the US, they need to work even more closely so that what they say, that people in Pakistan are directing operations there, and we say that people sitting there are, they are organizing terrorist attacks in Pakistan, so that this conundrum, this lack of cooperation, this is somehow met.
And it is a problem of mistrust on both sides, and that is what needs to be really addressed here.
But that mistrust is always, heightened by the Kabul government and by India. They always
that is always a he said, she said, and we're back to the same problem again. Shoukat Saab, Alice Wells is now the special representative for Pakistan and Afghanistan, and will be visiting Kabul as well as she's here in Pakistan and will be going on to New Delhi as well. What do you expect, sir? Do you think any positive outcome from her visit, or more of the same?
There are two components of her visit to Pakistan particularly, and then added objective is of this region. For this region, the Trump administration is reviewing the policy, the United States policy, and obviously when Assistant Secretary of State Alice Wells is in Pakistan, in Kabul, and she been to India already. Her exposure to the policymakers here will definitely add to whatever her conclusions will be about the policy towards this region. And to this region, there has been a policy since 9/11 which we objected and which was called FPAC, that we were clubbed with Afghanistan, although we are two different countries. And this clubbing with Afghanistan was highly resented in Pakistan. I am not saying on the basis of some sources, but it has already been communicated to the United States at various levels, here in Islamabad whenever someone was here, or back in DC when our officials were there. Lately, there have been reports that this FPAC phenomenon is going to be over, and the office of SRAP, Special Representative for Pakistan and Afghanistan, will be abolished at the State Department, and South Asia will be back on the basis of India and Pakistan. If that happens, will be a big step and big gestures for Pakistan, because that's exactly what Pakistan's policymakers, or you can say the Pakistani establishment, has been asking for.
Absolutely, sir. All roads lead to Kashmir, and we've spoken about this earlier as well, that once the Kashmir issue is addressed seriously, then we can see peace actually spread throughout the region, which goes beyond India and Pakistan.
Second component of the visit, that's bilateral. Alice Wells, when she met earlier the day with the Foreign Secretary Tahmina Janjua Sahiba, Alice Wells clearly spelled out that the objective of bilateral partnership with Pakistan is for stable, peaceful and prosperous Pakistan. If that becomes the cornerstone of the policy of the United States, that exactly will be in the best interest of the two countries. And short while ago, maybe 1 hour before, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa also issued a statement, and I think that's a very significant statement, that there has been attack on American forces in Kandahar, and our army chief has condemned the attack and has expressed sympathies with the families of the US soldiers back in the United States. I mean, all these gestures certainly add to the trust that you are talking of. But on Afghanistan, or in the long-term relationship, if you ask me about Pakistan and United States, which we are talking of, until Afghanistan gets stabilized, we will have to see this zigzag, because the Pakistani policy from the beginning has been a political solution. The solution driven through the dialogue among all the Afghan partners must be led by the Afghan government, Afghan-owned and Afghan, led and owned peace process. This not necessarily has been the approach by the United States. They may have, whenever you feel there is a surge of the US forces, that negates Pakistan's policy, that there should be a political component of solution to Afghanistan. And Pakistan, the government of Pakistan and various spokespersons of Pakistan have time and again made it clear that there is no military solution to the Afghan problem. It is necessarily a political driven solution. But as I say, that it has never been a consistent policy from the United States. For example, the QCG, Quadrilateral Core Group, was established here in Islamabad when Heart of Asia Istanbul process ministerial was taken place here. And this core group comprising United States, China and Pakistan, and obviously the principal party is Afghanistan. And then there were 2-3 meetings, and suddenly we heard because of the killing of Mullah Akhtar Mansoor, this process is no more there, or not functional, if I say. Then Russia also took some initiatives. There were 3-4 conferences leading to the Kabul conference, 2 months back on 6th of June, I believe. But that's also stalled now. Should I infer that the neighboring countries or the major power, they differ on the ultimate direction to the solution of Afghanistan? Yes, I do believe so. Until these neighboring powers and the major powers, they come to a consensus based policy, for example, only then this will guarantee. Otherwise, the people of Afghanistan, the poor people of Afghanistan have been facing this bloodshed for the last 40 years, and to me their misfortunes continues in the near future until these arrangements are done.
That's a very valid point, sir. But we also spoke about the interagency review for the entire region, which is the South Asian region, including Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, even Iran. Now, if you see the changes that are taking place in US policy, there seems to be complete confusion all around, sir. There doesn't seem to be, I mean, from the reports that are emanating from Washington, it seems that there's no consensus on any trajectory. There is no strategy. The generals are waiting for some direction from the presidency or from the White House, and the White House is asking for advice from the generals, and there seems to be complete chaos in the White House and the Pentagon, sir. How do you think this is going to be solved?
I would say that this is maybe there is some silver lining in this, in the way that the starting premise was that a couple of thousand more US troops will be sent. And now there is a kind of
question mark on that as well,
question mark and rethinking. Reportedly, President Trump himself is now wavering about sending more troops. What does this mean? Where I see the silver lining is that while maintaining the present troop level in Afghanistan, and maybe calling some contractors, as we hear.
You mean mercenaries, sir?
To mercenaries, to do some of the security jobs, but without sending more uniforms. But the silver lining would really be, maybe I'm being very optimistic, that another try for talks may.
Another thing that's been coming out, sir, is the complete lack of any political direction, because complete withdrawal is also now being put on the table. That is another very interesting development, because earlier we had heard reports that there was no question of America pulling out of Afghanistan, but now we are hearing reports that Mr. Trump might even be looking at a complete withdrawal. In that case, what do you think would be the ramifications if America was to completely withdraw from that?
This is an option which has been opposed by the US military, by the Pentagon, for the simple reason that they fear that if that is done, then the Taliban would overrun Kabul and they would overrun Kandahar, and that will be the end of this government, the government of disunity.
Right.
That will be the end of it. So that's a pretty heavy and risky kind of option.
But it is also being put on the table, though, for Mr. Trump to choose from. That was the last line I think that the generals had to give to the president was, okay, then let's have complete withdrawal on the table.
The thing is that the Americans, being a relatively new imperialist power, they don't have great experience in these things. So they build their scenario like surge and quit. It happened that surge came, surge went, but they couldn't quit. Quitting is the hard part.
All right.
That's why I say that they will probably not quit. Quit means problems all around, and my feeling is that no neighbor of Iran will be happy with that. No neighbor of Afghanistan will be happy with that.
Well, Shoukat sir, we have also spoken about the continuing mistrust between Kabul and Islamabad. How do you think that is going to be addressed in the coming days and weeks, especially when the meeting with the Chief of Army Staff has also just taken place yesterday? What direction are we going to go in? How can we ensure cooperation on the borders, fencing, maybe accepting the Durand line as the final and frontier between the two countries? So all the other small issues that are irking the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan, can they be solved?
There are no small issues which are causing problems between Afghanistan and Pakistan. You cannot isolate as Excellency has beautifully put it, and you ignored, the government of disunity, I mean, that explains the problems of Afghanistan,
Right.
This particular term,
Absolutely.
the government of disunity, is enough to explain the scenario,
Right.
So, Afghan government could be one component. There are other powers who are part of Afghanistan's, problems, and some of them are the impediment into the final solution of Afghanistan's problem, because of their own interests. When you say whether the United States will leave Afghanistan once for all, you are hinting to a dangerous phenomenon in this region, especially when you say Daesh is taking sanctuaries there and strengthening its foothold there in Afghanistan. When you say TTP, TTA are there, when we say Jamaatul Ahrar is sitting there, when we say Lashkar-e-Jhangvi al-Alami is sitting there, what are you talking of? Right. That you are talking of the United States and its allies abandoning a country where all this fuss is there, and do you feel that they will remain within the border of Afghanistan, if there is a total withdrawal from the United States? I don't think so. The big power, the big countries, they have their multiple interests, You were just talking of a probable advent of a new Cold War era, So if your thesis is carried forward and you feel that United States will abandon Afghanistan to leave all Central Asia, South Asia at the mercy of Russia, no. We have to, put all these things into one spectrum where China has already emerged a challenger, a competitor, and these phenomenon, one belt, one road, all across spreading its, roots, tentacles, from Central Asia, from Pakistan, from Far East, these are the challenges at global level. These are the problem that the current world order faces or is going to face it, No power in the history has unilaterally reduced its influence from the global powers, global affairs, And I personally cannot believe that President Trump will overnight decide that we must abandon Afghanistan once for all and we will never look back.
Well, it seems like President Trump really doesn't call the shots anymore, because there's Pentagon and Congress that he has to contend with, because when we look at the sanctions bill for Russia, he grudgingly had to sign. He tried to avoid it.
That explains the phenomenon when you say there is an advent of another Cold War. I was saying no, because the chief executive of the United States, who is supreme commander over there, he will never go to those policies which have a direct confrontation with President Putin or with the Russian establishment at all. The internal policy review in the United States, particularly in the context of this region, is going on. It has to be come up in a blueprint shape, that there must be something for their embassies in Islamabad, Kabul, Delhi, Tehran, or in the Central Asian capitals, that this has been the final policy outcome of the consultation process within the United States, different departments, Pentagon or State Department or National Security Council, etc., etc. Only then we will come to know that what policy President Trump is. When there was a conference in Riyadh,
recently,
during the visit of President Trump, President Trump did not meet the other leaders from this region because he has no impression what to say at the moment, whether it has to show a warmth in the relationship or he has to show a restraint in the relationship. No, until that policy is clear and clearly spelled out their own, officials at various level, only then President Trump will be able to embrace or hug, the leadership from Pakistan or from Iran or from India or from Afghanistan, till that time, especially where their relationship are constantly facing ups and down. I'm talking of Pakistan, although when he had a telephonic call with former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he said, fantastic man, fantastic country, fantastic people. those notions are still in there, but policy is not clear.
Right. Saeed Saab, before we actually talk about the Russian-American standoff in detail, what do you think, in your opinion, are the foremost challenges to Pakistan's foreign policy? What are the most important external challenges that Pakistan needs to face up to right now, in your opinion?
First of all, the challenges are the same which were there a week ago. And, this question whether the new cabinet faces some new challenges, obviously that is an oversimplification. The challenges were there and the challenges remain. And I need not go into, details of the challenges. What I feel is that the BJP and RSS, this combination, they have followed certain policies in the last 4 years since they came to power. And those policies have not succeeded. Recently, they have also started problem on the border with China.
Right.
And in Afghanistan, what has been tried in the last couple of years, before Trump, after Trump, also is not delivering any results. So my question is that these challenges, which are not only challenges for Pakistan, but also to these two countries in our neighborhood, they require a new political approach, which means that Delhi should review its policy of, trying to solve Kashmir through force. As Shoukat Paracha said, there is no military solution in Afghanistan. There is no military solution in Kashmir either.
Absolutely.
So are we going to move to a hopeful period where people will realize that in both cases, force is not the answer. Force can be maybe a holding kind of operation, but
we can only maintain the status quo.
We need to move
beyond
on.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that talks on Vietnam were going on while the war is going on.
Right.
Talks on Afghanistan, on Soviet occupation of Afghanistan were going on while the war was going on.
Right.
So diplomacy and war are not exclusive.
Right.
Diplomacy should be allowed to
simultaneously
work. It should.
Right.
And I think after all the mayhem, all the violence, all the tragedies, Afghanistan has been in turmoil for 40 years now. It requires a new approach.
Absolutely.
Same approach, we will continue to see the same in Kashmir and in Afghanistan.
Well, you have mentioned this new approach, sir, but let me ask Paracha Saab, what kind
Maybe he knows something about it.
What kind of options do you think we have available to us on the table? What new approaches can be used in trying to solve the conundrum?
If the problem exists for 20 years, then different approaches have been put on the paper. But not a single approach could be followed wholeheartedly because of the interplay of so many powers in Afghanistan. In 2010, January 2010, when there was a ministerial conference on Afghanistan in London, they came up with a proposal that was reintegration inside Afghanistan, that those Taliban who serve as foot soldiers, they will be given incentives to detach from the insurgents and join the mainstream. A $500 million fund was also announced. I was in London, I was attending the conference, What happened? How many foot soldiers they could succeed in detaching from the, no foreign solution can be imposed upon the indigenous people, And it was then thought that maybe the regional countries could help it out, and that's why Istanbul process or Heart of Asia later on came to be known, in the world capitals. But what happened to the Heart of Asia process? No, it has again turned a proxy between India and Pakistan. What happened in Amritsar, that how President Ashraf Ghani spoke or rather lambasted Pakistan, you have put the very right term. Was he himself speaking, as I was earlier talking, that the government of disunity, as Ambassador Saab is saying, So there have been many solutions on the table. QCG is one more example that China as an economic power, United States as a major power, Pakistan as a main, neighborly stakeholder, and Afghan, obviously Afghan government themselves, we were not talking of QCG in terms of the Afghan Taliban or Afghan resisting forces. No, it was primarily the Afghan government,
Right.
But why this process has been halted? Why Afghan government and the American administration, they are shy away from this process? Then, China, Pakistan, Russia trilateral has also been there, and then China, Pakistan bilateral has also been there. For economic development, Afghanistan, Pakistan and China recently, had another meeting for economic development, but there is
Nothing came out of it.
nothing, because there is no consensus among the major actors involved inside Afghanistan. As I said, some of them, they want to impede the political process or the peace process.
They want to maintain the status quo.
Because that serves their interest. Pakistan remains caught up on two fronts. If Afghan front or the western borders of Pakistan, they become safe, secure, then Pakistan will be comfortable in strengthening its position on the other borders, mean eastern borders. But more than 150,000 troops, they have to be deployed on the western borders. Border management has been another problem. Now, with the determination of Pakistani military and political leadership, that border management process is moving forward, which is a very welcome step by the government of Pakistan, that at least, it will not only secure Pakistani citizens, but also negate the allegation that the insurgents or the terrorists.
And do you think we'll stop listening to that mantra of do more, because they'll say, okay,
not
that lot has been
necessarily,
done?
not necessarily. I told you earlier that until the problem exists in your neighborhood, you have to face the heat. So problem is going to last for more time. I do not foresee an immediate halt of atrocities or conflict or hostilities rather inside Afghanistan, since there is no direction visible to that direction. That's why if the problem exists there, we will have to face the heat. If there is bloodshed, we will not be sitting comfortable. And that's why in Pakistan, so many people believe that whatever we can do for the solution to Afghan problem, we must do.
Another very important aspect of external issues and foreign policy issues is the water problem that we are facing with India. We have a delegation that has just completed its meetings in Washington, and there's another round of meetings that has been set for next month. What do you foresee, sir? I mean, we did have reports of some goodwill being shown by both countries towards trying to amicably solve this very, very touchy issue.
I'm glad you asked this, because I'm looking for straws here and there, and this is a straw.
Well, I'm glad I provided it to you, sir.
That maybe somewhere something good is happening, maybe.
All right.
Maybe. But I want to draw attention to another problem we have been facing, and we are not talking much about it because we talk geopolitics all the time. Pakistan trade with Afghanistan is down. Pakistan trade with Iran is not really
Pakistan's
going up.
trade all over is down.
All over
sir.
is down.
Yes.
But with these neighbors, I mean, we should do something. China's exports are increasing, our exports are not really increasing. With India, similar situation. With Afghanistan, where we used to export a lot more, it's down.
Yes.
And with Iran, despite the lifting of some of the sanctions, we have not been able to perform. So this is what worries me.
Right.
That, without our economic well-being,
Indeed.
how are we going
these
to
are very
attend to all
important
the
aspects that need to be looked at.
geostrategic issues?
Absolutely, sir. Now let's move on to the real problem, sir, where Shoukat Sahab, a tit-for-tat sort of situation, very much like India-Pakistan is now emerging between the Russians and the Americans. Especially the American government is not too happy about so-called alleged Russian meddling in the elections that brought Mr. Trump to power. And now, how do you think Mr. Trump is going to be able to deal with the kind of heat that he is facing from his own government and not being able to steer his government in the direction that he wants to take it in? So there's that resistance that he's feeling? And do you think that his hands are tied and he can't really do the great things of making America great again is in jeopardy?
I'm happy that we happen to talk about bilateral relations of two superpowers, while sitting in your
Well, that's the topic that we chose to talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that we are talking of something that is between two superpowers, The situation there, or the nature of bilateral relationship at the moment, is not as worse or bad as was during the Cold War era, when especially, for example, Cuban Missile Crisis or Soviet forces running over the Eastern European countries, Hungary, Bulgaria and others, it's not the case. So we cannot say that it's going to be again a Cold War.
But what do you attribute the new sanctions that have been applied on the Russians? There have been a very stark reaction from the Kremlin as well as from the Russian foreign
sanctions
minister.
were also, slapped when Ukrainian crisis was there. So these are the things which are less, severe as compared to the potential military conflict between two nuclear powers or two superpowers at that time.
I'd like to
sanctions are there is no doubt, but Russians have also faced these sanctions earlier even. It's not first time that the Western countries, or especially the United States, but whether the European allies of the United States, they are with the United States in imposing these sanctions.
Mr.
No.
Trump is not happy with them either.
So they are not the partner for these sanctions. The real threat that the Russians or the erstwhile Soviets have been facing, that was through the European mainland, because they are neighbors.
Right.
Napoleon or Hitler invasion was through the German borders. It was never from aerial, that the United States is coming over and bombing the Russian territory. No. So if their immediate neighborhood, like India and Afghanistan for us, the threat from these borders will be more, in terms of the blitzkriegs or urgent, bases, as compared to someone coming from Far East, or someone coming from beyond Middle East or Caucasian region, So if the Europeans, they are having normal trade and economic relations with the Russians, and without any sanctions, I think Russians will remain comfortable. But Russians must also be very happy, because of the discord within the United States, that the presidency or the White House versus the Capitol Hill or the Pentagon or Capitol Hill, again. So Russians must be happy, about this.
Well, I want to share with you what the Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev has said. And he said that sanctions amounted to full-fledged economic war on Russia. And it demonstrates Trump's total weakness in the most humiliating way. That is one statement. And then the other statement is that it ends hopes for improving our relations with the new U.S. administration. This is what Mr. Medvedev has said.
One thing is clear. He is talking of economic war. We were comparing it with the Cold War, when the imminent nuclear war have been there on their heads, and clouds of nuclear war were hanging any time, because of any miscalculation. So economic war, again, ruled out the military conflict between two superpowers.
Right.
The other is, exactly, you are also seeing the same thing, what Dmitry Medvedev has said, that within the United States, President, he is daily sending tweets, fake media, fake, people, fake entities, whatever they are in the United States. Since I said it's their internal matter, But President, if their elected President is feeling uncomfortable, or he is facing discomfort in its disposal of executive powers, the people of United States have to decide.
Well, Mr. Trump went so far as to say that he is a brilliant businessman and makes billions of dollars of deals and is far more capable of making a good deal with any country across the globe rather than Congress. He says that Congress is not as capable as Mr. Trump himself is. So how do you think this kind of a statement is going to go down in the American polity and the intelligentsia?
First of all, it is dangerous to make a tycoon president of the country, because his thinking is limited to business, And now, after 6 months, in the White House and wrangling all around, with everybody practically. He is realizing certain his own limitations, first of all, and secondly, that there is a permanent establishment in the United States which is going to decide things on vital strategic considerations, irrespective of personal friendships or business acumen. And I think he should be feeling humiliated. Actually, his survival is in danger. It is in jeopardy because he has been trying to cover up all the hobnobbing with the Russians. And others are not too happy about it, and they want to unravel it, open it more and more. Not a very happy situation for the president of the world's #1 country.
Right.
And let's see. In general, I would say that United States before Trump and Europe, they had planned to extend NATO's influence towards and around Russia. And that is where Russia, bolted and occupied Crimea and other actions. So I think the basic problem is maybe the Europeans think that they can integrate Russia in their own economic web and therefore avoid further conflicts with Russia. And that's why they are not very happy with the latest sanctions.
But there was already a good economic relationship between Europe and Russia previously, before Crimea took place, before Ukraine, and they were supplying their gas to Europe, but then they had to change and make a new pipeline and supply the gas to Turkey. So if you look at what's happening around our region as well, and then when we look at the age-old relationship of the Americans and the Russians, it keeps sort of seesawing around. So, Paracha Saab, in your opinion, can we see some positive developments taking place between the Russian and American relationship as a whole, or do you think it's going to get from bad to worse in the days to come?
Russia has also been trying to resurge as a major power in the global affairs. That has been the policy of President Putin, consistent policy. Putin served as president, then became prime minister, then again became president. So Putin's penchant for power is there, and his driving thrust is to play the same role as they used to play during the former Soviet era. But it cannot repeat. They cannot reoccupy Baltic states or Central Asian states or in Caucasian region, So Russia has to remain contented what it is today. But still it's a big country. It has a nuclear arsenal.
Especially the role in Syria, sir.
The American policy was in a conflict, in fact. They wanted to get rid of Bashar, there is no doubt. But at the same time, they also did not want the hardliners, to be replaced by Bashar, That was also against their interest. Many people suspect that Daesh was the creation of the United States of America in its earlier days, but then they realized that what they are going to do it's a controversial impression, it's a controversial perception. And similar is the impression about Daesh emergence in Afghanistan. This is also a perception. How far it is a reality, I don't know. I'm not the policy maker to be part of the whole, the trail, whatever the emergence of the Daesh has been. But this is in the public domain.
Right.
The same United States has worked with Iran for stabilization of Iraq, at the cost of their Arab allies' annoyance, Similarly, they have worked with Iraqi government, which is predominantly a pro-Iranian government, Syrian crisis has been, now President Trump also ordered for missile, after the chemical weapon attack was shown on TV screens.
While eating chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Right.
The problem is that whom to support and what to support and at what cost. Hezbollah in Lebanon, that created problems for Israel and indirectly for the United States. But Hezbollah is part of that crisis, whole arrangement from Iran, from Iraq, from Lebanon, from Syria. It's it's a whole crest, No,
But then not only that, sir, but also the Israeli and Palestinian conflict also is a very major part of American policy in the region. And we've seen
they are very
some
clear.
movement
They
taking place.
are very clear that they have to patronize Israel. That's beyond any doubt.
But we keep hearing about the two-state solution, and we keep hearing about
you
the
remember
Americans and
President
the Europeans
Bill
trying to
Clinton
pressure the Israelis to back off.
You remember President Bill Clinton managed a handshake between the then President Yasser Arafat and the Prime Minister of Israel. It was Shimon Peres, or I don't remember his exact name. But what happened? On the question of Israel, the United States, be it Clinton, be it Obama, or be it President Trump, they are behind Israel. There cannot be any compromise because the network of Jews inside the United States. I mean, IPAC, for example, one umbrella organization, American Israelis Public Affairs Committee. This is the umbrella of all the Jew organizations working in the United States. Any president of United States cannot come out from the influence of those organizations. So their support for Israel is beyond any doubt, beyond any compromise, beyond any question. So don't compare, please, the Palestinian-Israeli question with the problems in the other parts of the Arab world.
All right, absolutely, sir. Saeed sir, moving forward, what would you expect, or what would be your hopes that, because we've made some very good overtures towards the Russians as well. We see that Pakistan's relationship with Russia is also improving day by day. We've obviously got our Chinese friends who are investing heavily in Pakistan. How do you think the Americans are viewing all these developments when it comes to Pakistan? Because we keep hearing about America being engaged with Pakistan for the long term. We keep hearing about the carrot and stick policy that should be applied towards Pakistan, although we've never heard of any other policy that has ever been applied towards Pakistan. So what does it all mean, if you could just decipher it for us?
I think, again, it will depend really on what the Americans want to do next in Afghanistan. The famous review has been going on. If there is going to be another attempt at the political approach, talks, then these players, the Kabul government and the Taliban, they have to think seriously about that. How long more can this go on? 40 years have gone already, and so what can America do? America can maybe, on this particular issue, America can encourage Kabul. America can seek help from Russia, China, already from Pakistan, to launch a new round of negotiations in Afghanistan. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I think it provides us an opportunity to increase our diplomatic footprint. And let's hope that we do that first by appointing a foreign minister, and then let's hope that we take advantage of this restructuring going on.
Absolutely.
Restructuring of power among the big powers, because we are in the region.
Absolutely.
Russia
we must take these opportunities and not waste them.
So this is, I see it as an opportunity for Pakistan.
Shoukat Sahab, anything in conclusion? We're almost out of time, but if you'd like to share your pearls of wisdom with us.
Excellency is very right, that for preservation and protection of Pakistan's interest, our motive should be very clear, and our policy should be guided by those principles. One thing I always say, and I would like to reiterate it again, that we also owe a lot to Afghanistan. They are our brothers. If I am a Muslim, maybe it's a contribution of Afghan people. Most of the saints in Pakistan, in this land, they came from Afghanistan. We share historical and traditional relationship with them.
Not to mention genetic and blood ties as well.
Most of them, that's also there.
Yes.
Maybe your case is very important, you see.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we should also pursue with honesty that there comes a peace in Afghanistan. Somehow, they are the girls and boys, women and men They are of our brothers, Muslim brothers, Islamic followers, and it's injunction of Islam that if there is a dispute between two of your brothers, you may play a role to diffuse any conflict between them. Afghanistan is in turmoil. Who are fighting against each other? They are Afghan people, whether they are the Taliban or they are the northern people, whether they are from Herat or Kandahar or Madar Sharif, they all are Afghans. And they never say we are Hazaras or we are Tajiks or we are Uzbeks. They always say we are the Afghan people, you know. If we can play any role, we must play that role.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and being on the show. Well, you heard the conversation, and in conclusion, we'd like to say that Pakistan's foreign policy has always been that of non-interference in our neighbors' affairs, but only offering a helping hand for cooperation. On that note, it's goodbye.
Just like the billboard paintings performed in Pakistan, there is another indigenous form of art performed in Pakistan, and it is the truck art. With its all colorful floral patterns, depiction of human heroes with creative aspects, ratios, calligraphy of poetic verse, and drivers' words of wisdom. This form of art is truly a part of Pakistani transport tradition. Many trucks and buses in Pakistan are highly customized and decorated by their owners. These adjourned vehicles are considered as moving art or jing